You ever rake up a huge pile of leaves in the fall, leave it sitting there all winter, and then come back in spring expecting dark, rich compost? But instead, all you find is a wet, flat, sticky mess. The leaves still look like leaves. They are just heavier, slimier, and more annoying to deal with. I know that feeling. You think, maybe I didn't wait long enough. So you pile them back up and tell yourself, maybe next year. But here's the truth. You were not failing because you were impatient. You were failing because that pile was missing the one thing it needed to wake up. Leaves do not magically turn into compost just because time passes. They need the right fuel. And once you add that missing piece, the whole pile changes. There is one simple liquid that can help turn a dead pile of leaves into real compost in about 3 weeks. Not years. Weeks. Most people think slow compost just needs more time. I used to think that too. You make a pile, wait long enough, and nature handles the rest. Sounds simple. But with leaves, that is not always how it works. Leaves are not slow to break down because they are stubborn. And it does not mean you are bad at gardening. The real problem is chemistry. Fallen leaves are built to last. In nature, they are supposed to break down slowly, little by little, over months and years. That slow breakdown feeds the soil over time. But when you rake them into one big pile, you are basically stacking up a mountain of carbon. That pile has plenty of material, but not enough fuel for the tiny life inside it to really get moving. So the leaves sit there. They get wet. They mat together. And instead of becoming compost, they just turn into a cold, soggy pile. Here is the simple way to understand it. Leaves are packed with carbon. They also contain tough stuff called lignin and cellulose. Those are the parts that make leaves harder to break down. Bacteria can break them down, but they need help. They need nitrogen. Nitrogen is what lets those bacteria grow, multiply, and do the heavy work. Without it, the bacteria are there, but they are weak. It is like asking a work crew to tear down an old building with no tools, no food, and no energy. They may show up, but not much is going to happen. That is why a pile of plain leaves can sit for months, sometimes years, and still not turn into good compost. The leaves have carbon. The bacteria are waiting. But the pile is missing nitrogen. Once you add it, everything speeds up. The pile starts heating. The leaves start collapsing. And that dead-looking mess finally starts turning into soil. Here is the number you need to remember. Fast compost needs about 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. That is the sweet spot. But dry leaves are usually around 60 to 1, sometimes even higher. So when you pile up leaves by themselves, the balance is way off. There is too much carbon and not nearly enough nitrogen. That is why the pile does not heat up. That is why it does not shrink down. That is why it sits there looking almost the same month after month. The bacteria are not lazy. They are just missing what they need to work. Think of carbon like the big pile of wood for a fire, and nitrogen like the spark and fuel that gets it going. Without nitrogen, the pile stays cold. But when you bring that ratio closer to 30 to 1, everything changes. The bacteria wake up. The center of the pile starts getting warm. The leaves begin to soften, collapse, and break apart. That is when composting finally starts moving fast. Before we get into the liquid itself, let me say this. If you like simple backyard methods that actually work, subscribe to Quiet Growth Lab. No fancy tricks. No expensive systems. No pretending you need a garage full of tools to grow better soil. Just practical ideas you can use with what you already have around your yard. This is the kind of stuff most people overlook because it is too simple to sell. But simple does not mean weak. Sometimes the cheapest method is the one that works best. So if you want more natural, low-cost ways to build better soil, grow healthier plants, and stop wasting what your yard already gives you, hit subscribe. Now let's get back to the liquid that wakes up a dead pile of leaves. The first liquid is manure tea. And yes, it is exactly what it sounds like. You take manure, soak it in water, and use that liquid to feed the compost pile. Chicken manure works well. Rabbit manure works too. Aged horse manure can also do the job. Just make sure it is not fresh and steaming hot from the animal. Aged manure is safer and easier to work with. Here is the simple way to make it. Take a 5-gallon bucket and fill it about halfway with manure. Then add water until the bucket is full. Let it sit for 3 to 5 days. Stir it once a day if you can. What you are making is a dark, nitrogen-rich liquid that bacteria love. When you pour that into a leaf pile, you are not just adding water, you are adding the missing fuel. The pile can finally heat up. The bacteria start multiplying fast, and those dry, stubborn leaves begin turning into real compost instead of sitting there for another year. Now, if you do not have manure, do not worry. There is another option that works really well: blood meal tea. Blood meal is basically dried animal blood, and gardeners use it because it is packed with nitrogen. It does not sound pretty, but it works. You can usually find it at a garden center or farm supply store, and a small bag goes a long way. Here is all you do. Take 1 cup of blood meal and mix it into 1 gallon of warm water. Stir it until it breaks down as much as possible. That is it. You now have a strong nitrogen liquid you can pour into your leaf pile. It is not completely free like manure might be, but it is cheap, simple, and powerful. This is a good choice if you live in the suburbs, do not keep animals, or just want something easy to measure. When this liquid hits dry leaves, it gives the bacteria the fuel they were missing. And once they get that fuel, the pile can finally start heating up. The way you build the pile matters. Do not just dump all the leaves in one big heap and pour the liquid on top. That only wets the surface. The inside stays dry, cold, and hungry. Build it in layers. Start with about 6 inches of leaves. Then pour your nitrogen liquid over that layer until it is damp, not flooded. Add another 6 inches of leaves. Pour again. Keep doing that until the pile is built. What you are trying to do is get nitrogen into every part of the pile, not just the top few inches. That is where the magic starts. Within 24 to 48 hours, check the center with your hand. It should feel warm. After 3 or 4 days, it can get seriously hot, sometimes hot enough to give off steam on a cold morning. That heat is a good sign. It means the bacteria are awake, feeding, multiplying, and finally breaking those leaves down instead of letting them sit there for another season. After about a week, do not just leave the pile alone and hope for the best. Turn it. Take the outside leaves and move them into the middle. Take the hot center and bring it toward the outside. This does 2 things. It spreads the bacteria around, and it brings oxygen back into the pile. Compost needs air. Without air, the pile slows down and starts smelling bad. Moisture matters too. The pile should feel like a wrung-out sponge. Damp, but not dripping. If you grab a handful and it feels dry and dusty, add water. If water squeezes out, it is too wet. Add more dry leaves or other dry material, then turn it to open it up. This part is not complicated. You are just keeping the pile alive. Warmth, air, and steady moisture. That is what keeps the bacteria working. If you give them that, they will do the hard part for you. Now, you do not have to buy anything fancy to make this work. Nitrogen can come from simple things you already have. One option is urine. I know some people do not like hearing that, but it works. Use it fresh and dilute it with water. 1 part urine to 10 parts water. Then pour it through the leaf layers the same way you would use manure tea or blood meal tea. Nitrogen is nitrogen. The pile does not care where it came from. You can also use green material from the yard or kitchen, fresh grass clippings, vegetable scraps, and weeds that have not gone to seed can all help. They do not hit as hard as manure or blood meal, but they still feed the bacteria. The main idea is simple. Dry leaves are heavy on carbon. You need to balance them with enough nitrogen. Once that balance is there, the pile stops sitting cold and starts breaking down like it should. Your compost pile will usually tell you what is going on. You just have to pay attention. If it does not heat up within 48 hours, it probably needs more nitrogen. Add more manure tea, blood meal tea, diluted urine, or green material. If it gets hot for a few days and then cools down too fast, it may not be dead. It may just need air. Turn the pile and open it back up. Oxygen keeps the bacteria moving. If the pile smells like ammonia, that means you went too heavy on nitrogen. Add more dry leaves and mix them in. If it smells rotten or sour, the pile is probably too wet or packed too tight. That means oxygen cannot get through. Add dry material and turn it well. Do not panic when something feels off. Composting is not about being perfect. It is about adjusting. Warm, damp, airy, and balanced. That is what you are aiming for. Fallen leaves are not trash. They are free fertility sitting right in your yard. Most people bag them up, drag them to the curb, and then go buy compost later. That never made sense to me. You already have the carbon. You just need to add nitrogen, moisture, and oxygen. That is the whole system. You do not need to wait years. You do not need fancy bins. You do not need expensive compost starters. You just need to give nature the missing pieces and let the bacteria do their job. So this fall, do not throw those leaves away. Turn them into soil. Try one pile. Use manure tea, blood meal tea, diluted urine, or green yard waste. Then come back and tell us what happened. Did it heat up in 2 days? How fast did it break down? I would really like to hear your results. Thank you for watching Quiet Growth Lab. If this video helped you, please subscribe, hit like, and share it with someone who still has a stubborn pile of leaves sitting in the yard.